Alright guys, welcome back to the vlog. Currently reporting from here in Los Angeles. It's around 8 in the morning. I have no idea why I'm up so early, but I figured it's a good time to chat with you guys. You'll have to excuse the mess of a hairstyle I've got going on. This is how it looks when I haven't showered yet. If you're new here, welcome. You're kind of arriving at a bad time. I'm in the middle of a pretty major downswing, down around $300,000 to $350,000 in the past 30 days. It might sound extreme, and that's because it is. But we're trying to make things right, and this past week I got a chance to do that on Hustler by playing twice, Wednesday and Friday. So for today's video, I'm gonna go over the most interesting hands from those two streams. I've also got a few announcements afterwards, so stay tuned. Without talking too much, let's get straight into the poker. All right, guys, welcome back. We are once again at Hustler. And like I said, two streams today. In the first one, we're playing 25, 50, 100. The 200 was often on, so quite a big game. And in the first interesting hand, the stand-up game is on, and I am one of two remaining players who is left to win a hand. That means I'm very close to losing the game. The other player is L, who coincidentally is the all-in player here. After a raise to 2,500 from Jesse in the cutoff. These sizes are a little bit weird, but with stacks being short and the stand-up game on, it's not too uncommon. L decides to rip it in there for 15,000. Now it's on me with pocket sevens in the last blind. It's kind of a weird spot because if Jesse has me crushed, then it's a pretty easy fold, but if Jesse's opening light and then L is going all in with a bunch of hands, since he really needs to win one of these, then pocket sevens becomes not too bad. So I think either way is probably acceptable. Lean towards fold if I'm honest, but this time I decide to take the aggressive route and put some money in the pot. I make it a min raise, try to get Jesse out of the pot, heads up with L, and somehow it ends up working as Jesse mucks ace king. So we are all in heads up versus L. Unfortunately, he's got pocket tens, so that's really bad. That's one of the few hands I did not want him to have. Of course, a bigger pocket pair. We run it twice, no help on the first one, but on the second board, we river a straight. Some good luck there to avoid losing this $34,000 pot. Fast forward 2 hours, and once again, I am one of two remaining players who needs to win a hand in order to avoid the stand-up bounty. As you guys can probably tell, I was quite card dead on this night since this happened to me quite a few times. Sometimes there's just not much you can do, but then 6-5 offsuit comes to save the day. I limp along, a bunch of other people limp, and then there's a raise to 2,000 from the third blind. That's L making it 2K to go. I call, not recommended, but just trying to see a flop and maybe get lucky. Henry calls and everyone gets out of the way, but then Brittany jams for 3,000. Not enough for L to raise, so he just calls. I call, Henry calls, four of us going to a flop. How did I get here with 6-5 offsuit? It's pretty embarrassing. But then the board bails me out. It's 8-7 deuce with 3 diamonds. So I've got an up and down straight draw plus the 5 high flush draw. As luck would have it, I am the only one in this situation with a diamond. But of course, I don't know that. So when L bets 2,000 into a dry side pot, I'm not really sure that raising makes much sense since bluffing into a dry side pot has zero benefit. So I just call. Henry gets out of the way and we go to the 3 of diamonds on the turn. Not bad whatsoever. We make the flush. Granted, it is only a 5 high flush, so pretty much just a bluff catcher for the most part if L continues to apply pressure. But when he checks, I think we have the best hand more often than not, and we might have some bluffs here considering that now we do have a side pot between us. So I jam all in for his remaining 12K. It's less than a pot-sized shove at this point, trying to put any 2 overcards, or really any hand that's not a flush, in a tough spot. L thinks about it for quite a long time. I think he's got an overpair most likely without a diamond, but as you guys can see, he's just got an offsuit ace-jack with no diamond, so a little bit weird that it took him this long to fold. Who knows, maybe he just wanted to look me up with ace-high, but he ends up folding, and we beat Brittany with 6-5. Somehow we were ahead pre-flop as she had 3-5. So yeah, not my proudest moment, but we do win a hand and avoid losing the stand-up game. So after getting nothing really that playable for nearly 4 hours, we finally look down at a real hand, pocket queens, make it 500 to go, and then Dennis makes it 2,500 from the small blind. Back around to me now, and well, it's not rocket science. We've got a super strong hand, so I'm going to keep raising. I make it 7,000 to go. I do have a little bit of history with Dennis as well. He was pretty aggressive last time and liked to see a lot of flops, so I'm happy to just pile chips into the middle and see what happens. Dennis makes the call, and we go to a flop of King 6-5 with 2 hearts. Not the best, obviously, as there's an overcard to my queens, but it's really not too much concern. An ace would be significantly worse. Reason I say that is if he had ace king, I would imagine he raises again pre-flop. So king queen and king jack are the most likely hands. We have 2 queens, so that makes it much less likely he's got king queen. And king jack, I guess, is possible, but it's not going to happen too often. All that to say, I'm not too sketched out about it. I bet small, just like I would with all my hands after he checks. He makes the call, and we go to a turn card, which is the 7 of clubs. Might look a little dicey on the surface, but considering all the raising that happened pre-flop, I think it's mostly a safe card. Should still be ahead most of the time, and we can continue getting value from smaller pairs, and of course flush draws, since I don't have a heart in my hand. He might be slightly more weighted towards those. Dennis checks again, and now you could check back or bet small. I decide to bet 1/3 the size of the pot, $7,800. Dennis makes the call, and when we see the 9 of diamonds on the river, I think we're probably not getting value from worse anymore, so I check it back immediately, and I'm a bit frustrated to see that we got outflopped by king queen. Had him in terrible shape, but can't get it done, and we lose this $40,000 pot. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we arrive at the last fun hand of this stream. That's right, only 3 or 4 worthwhile spots tonight. That's kind of how it goes when you're on a rough stretch of poker. I'm sure you guys know. You go to the casino, you think you're going to make things better, and then you get no cards for a long time. It's just one of those things that comes hand in hand with the downswing. But here we go. We've got 9-8 of clubs. There's a raise to 600, a re-raise to 1,500. It's on me on the button, and well, we should just fold. It's a suited connector, yeah, but with all the raising ahead of us, it doesn't really perform that well as a cold call, and putting in a re-raise with 9 high is not suggested, but I am going to get frisky this time, mainly because I've been so quiet tonight that I think I'm going to get a little more credit than usual. Make it 3,500, L gets out of the way, and brown baller makes the call. So we go to a flop of queen 7-6 with 2 hearts, no club out there. We do have the open-ended straight draw, not much else aside from that. Brown baller checks, and even though I don't have anything really, this is a board where I would often still have many strong hands like aces, kings, pocket queens even, ace king of hearts, ace queen. You guys get the idea. There's all sorts of strong holdings that I would continue betting here. So that's what I'll do with bluffs as well. 2,500, I think a small size is the best option here. Brown baller makes the call, and we see an interesting turn card. It's the king of spades. Now, obviously that doesn't give me any help directly, but it is a card that's going to hit me so much more often than him. If he's got top pair on the flop, he's going to hate this card. And that's all the excuse I need to continue applying pressure. Just seems like a better card for me. So when he checks, I put in $5,000, a little less than half pot, but I'm trying to set up a pot-sized all-in on the river, if it's a decent card, that is. Brown baller thinks for a bit and once again makes the call. As you guys can see, this is actually a terrible card because he's picked up top pair to go along with the flush draw. But we still have a river. Let's see if we can find some help, and that's not what we get. It's the deuce of clubs. He checks it again, pot's 23K, and what do we do here? Well, giving up is probably not the worst thing ever, since putting in the price of a Honda Civic with 9 high is probably not great. But that said, this is a good spot to bluff, I think. We don't have any hearts, which is good. We want him to have the hearts that he might fold, say a hand like ace 10 of hearts or ace 5 of hearts. We also don't have any showdown value whatsoever. I guess all I'm trying to say is we have minimal removal to hands that we want him to fold, and I also don't have a jack, which makes it more likely he's got a hand like queen jack suited. So these are all things that are going through my mind, small factors that weigh into decision making in spots like these, and I think the decision here is to go for it. Plenty of value hands to balance this out with, so it's time to fire the clip and cross our fingers.
So Mariano does go for it. He moves all in, pot now 49,000. And it's all in for brown baller to call. Again, I feel like Mariano probably would have wanted to go like 2x here, 1.5x, but brown baller just not quite that deep. But does the pot size bet get it done?
After about 2 or 3 minutes, as painful as it was, brown baller eventually folds which is a great outcome, of course. We get maximum value without making our hand. And this was a nice confidence boost after a night that had been rather frustrating, like most nights in recent weeks. But anyway, that brought an end to this stream. I did lose a little bit, but worry not, we have another stream to come, and it's a Friday game, which is significantly bigger normally than the Wednesday streams. So here we go. In this one, there's a min raise from max to 200. Brown Balla calls, Henry re-raises to 1100, and I'm in the big blind with 8-5 of clubs. There's a raise, a call, a re-raise, and we've got a terrible hand, so folding would be normal. However, bear in mind that a few of the players in this hand, I don't want to get too specific, but we got some action players and we also have some guys on tilt. All right, so I decided to get in there. I've been playing okay tonight. I'm not on tilt, so I'm going to play a terrible hand and see if we can maybe make something happen. I make the call, Max makes the call as well, and Brown Balla comes along. So 4 of us go into a flop of Jack 10-7 with 1 club. So we've got a backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw. All in all, it's a bad flop though for 8-5 of clubs, like many flops are going to be, especially out of position. I check, Max checks, Brown Balla checks, now Henry checks it back. Turn card's a 6 of diamonds, and well, I couldn't ask for a better turn card to bluff on. We've got the straight draw and also can represent 8-9, 2 pair, all sorts of stuff on this board. So I start with a pot-sized bet, $4,500. I'm not expecting this to get the job done right away, but I think good things can happen on the river. Brown Balla makes the call, Henry lets it go, and we go to a river which is the 8 of diamonds, giving us a pair, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to be good. So my plan is to continue bluffing. We can represent backdoor diamonds and would still bet a straight for value. So I put in a bet of around half pot. I think this makes sense with the flush out there and a one-liner to a straight. Don't want to go too big, so I bet 6K. And we get a fold from 2 pair. Once again, bluffing Brown Balla, 2 for 2 today against him. That's pretty cool. Moving right along to the next one where I've got King Jack suited. In this one, Henry limps in for 200 bucks. L then makes it 1200, and I'm in the small blind with King Jack suited. Stand-up game is on, plus King Jack suited is a super good hand. It's time to re-raise. L could be pretty wide here, and as you guys can see, he sure is with Queen 8 offsuit. I make it $4,000 to go. Brown Balla cold calls, Henry calls, and then L also calls, so credit to him. At least he's trying his hardest. We go to a flop of King 5-3 with 1 club. Looks pretty great to me. We've got top pair. Not much to worry about on a board like this, aside from flopped sets and the occasional King Queen, I guess, but for the most part, things are looking good. I bet small, 5,500 bucks. Brown Balla gets out of the way. Henry makes the call, and L folds his Queen 8 offsuit. Nice of him to have some discipline here. Going to a turn heads up versus Henry, looking for a clean card, of course. That's not what we get. It's the 7 of spades. It looks awful to me, but as y'all can see from the cards, this is actually a saving grace because I thought for sure we were probably ahead on the flop. But this turn card is actually going to save me from Henry's bottom set that he's flopped here. So yeah, I check it over to him. The most obvious straight draw's gotten there, 6-4. The spades are in. Now my hand's just a bluff catcher. I check. And now Henry does not check. He assembles a bet of, let's see how much. Oh, that's right. It was all of his chips. $32,000 into a pot that's 27K. And of course, you might be thinking, well, just fold your hand, Mariano. You only have top pair. The reason it took me quite a while to decide what to do was because this sizing from Henry confused me. I think if he had a straight or a flush, he'd want to bet smaller for value. It looks quite likely that I either have top pair or maybe an over pair like aces, but my hand doesn't look super strong, so why would he shove all in if he had a good hand? It didn't really make sense to me, so yeah, it took me a bit to weigh the options. I was scratching my head a little bit, but in the end, I figured he might be going all in with sets or, I don't know, small flushes in fear that a bigger spade will come, so I just get out of the way. And luckily we avoid losing too much more in this one. In this one, Max opens to 200. Once again, a min raise from him. L makes it 1,000 on the button, and I look down at ace queen in the big blind. Similar to last hand, worthy of a raise, I think. It's a great hand. So I make it $2,000 to go. That's right, it's essentially a min raise. If anyone out there is going to get technical and say that I could have made it 1,800, you guys should go outside and touch some grass. But anyway, I make it 2,000. The reason for that is I want Max to call and then L to go all in. That way I could raise again and get Max out of the pot with his free 2,000 in there. I'm overthinking it because Max ends up just calling and then L folds. Heads up versus Max out of position to a flop of ace king deuce. That's top pair, so I'm gonna bet 2,000 bucks. Now Max thinks for a bit and raises to $4,000. Not sure what's up with that, but I have top pair still, so I call. Turn card is the 5 of spades. I check again. Now Max bets 2,000. I call again. River is nice. It's the ace of diamonds, so if there was any doubt about us having the best hand, now I feel a little bit better. I check it again. Max thinks for a bit and decides another bet is in order. $5,000. Could go for a check raise here, but I don't know. I decided to just call. Not sure if we're getting called by a worse hand here, aside from, I guess, a weaker ace. Probably should have check raised, actually, and then just fold if he raises again. But anyway, I just call, take it easy on Max this time, and it turns out that it makes no difference because he had 9 high trying to steal this one away. Nice try, Max. Not going to work this time with trip aces. Moving right along to the next one. Here we've got King 3 suited in late position. There's an open from Superman to 500. I make it 2,000 next to act. Not really strong enough to call. Probably just want to muck most of the time and occasionally get in there with the 3-bet. So that's what I do here. Max cold calls on my left. He's on the button, and suited Superman calls as well. So not great, but hoping to see a good flop that we can continue applying pressure. Ace 7-3 looks all right to me. We've got bottom pair. Would be a lot better if there was a diamond out there, but gonna try to represent the ace. Hands like ace king, ace queen, definitely in my repertoire here. So when it checks to me, I bet 2,200. Max calls, suited Superman gets out of the way. We see an innocuous 9 of diamonds on the turn. Now, of course, it's not an innocent card whatsoever. It gives Max a set, and it has me drawing dead. Off to a river, which is the king of clubs, bringing in the flush draw from the flop, but obviously giving me 2 pair, which has me feeling great. However, I don't think betting makes much sense after checking the turn. Probably better to check call or occasionally check raise depending on his sizing. But he bets the size of the pot, $10,000 after I check. Not going to be raising against that size, so I just call after some thought, and he shows me the bad news. The turn set, plus the check on the turn gets him paid. Nice hand. And with that, we arrive at the hand of the night for me, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. In this one, there's a raise to 200. Henry calls in the cutoff. L calls on the button. I defend the big blind with ace 6 offsuit. It's not too common that we get huge pots out of these pre-flop limps and calls and min raises, but we're going to make an exception today. Here we go. 4 ways to a flop of ace, jack, 8 with 2 spades. We've got top pair, but that's about it. Well, I guess we do have the 6 of spades, but I'm not banking on that. I check. Max checks. He's the pre-flop raiser. Now Henry bets $300. L makes the call on the button. Gets to me. I've got top pair. I call, and Max calls as well. So the 4 of us still go into a turn, which is a 6. The 6 of clubs, giving me aces up. Rather disguised 2 pair, but it also makes the board super draw heavy now. I'm out of position, so I check again, and now Max leads out after raising pre-flop and then check calling the flop. You can't say this man doesn't have style. He leads out for 2,000. Henry thinks for a bit now. You gotta remember, Henry's the one who bet the flop and calls the 2,000. L finally folds his jack, and now it's back to me. Given how the action's gone down so far, I think we're gonna have the best hand almost always. And not just that, but this is a board where I would heavily check raise all sorts of draws that don't have showdown value on the river. Say hands like 10-9 of spades, queen 9 of spades. You guys get the idea. Straight draws, all sorts of clubs like jack 9 of clubs, 8-7 of clubs. There's just so many possibilities for draws that want to play aggressively now that I think check raising with a value hand like this is mandatory. So after thinking that through, I make it 9,000 to go. Max is next to act, and now he's in a tough spot with an ace, but eventually does make a very nice fold. Action's back to Henry now. We're heads up, and I'm expecting him to call almost always, occasionally fold. But I think given how the action's gone, he's going to have a draw, most likely, maybe a non-believing ace here and there. What happens next is not at all what I expected. Henry puts in a raise to $26,000. I have no idea what's going on now. He's essentially representing a very strong hand, but what I'm thinking is, why would he just call Max on the turn bet if he had a super strong hand? When Max leads out for 2,000, all these draws out there, isn't he gonna raise if he has 2 pair or a set? That's what I would assume. So yeah, I have no idea what he's representing here. All I know is I've got 2 pairs, so I'm not going anywhere just yet. I make the call. We're off to a river in this bloated pot. 56,000 already in the middle, and we see the Queen of Diamonds on the river. Looks pretty clean. Only hand that concerns me is 10-9 of spades. I guess once in a blue moon he might have King 10 of spades, but that hand is probably going to play more aggressively pre-flop. So really just 10-9 of spades gets there. Aside from that, nothing changes really. Anyway, nothing for me to do but check it over to Henry after he raised on the turn. Leading out would make no sense, so nothing else to do. Action's on Henry now, and he thinks it over for quite some time before assembling a bet for once and for all of $32,000. Now, I know you guys can see the graphics. It's easy from where we're all sitting now, being able to see what's going on, but in the moment, I thought to myself, this would be such a ridiculous bluff, given how the turn has gone down, that I just don't think he's bluffing too often. Probably he has a value hand more often than not, and plus I've played with Henry quite a bit and he leans heavily towards the value side of town. Not that that's a bad thing, but just saying. So yeah, it's a tough spot now, but my analysis on the turn is still intact here on the river, aside from 10-9 of spades. However, just like it would be weird for him to bluff, I can't really think of too many value hands. If he had pocket sixes, he would have folded on the flop. If he had ace jack or pocket aces or pocket jacks, those all would have re-raised pre-flop. Jack 8, we beat that hand and he probably wouldn't play it this way. Really the only hand that kind of has me worried is ace 8. But I'm looking at the suits of my cards. As you guys can see here, I'm double checking the suits. And I'm looking at the suits on the board. Turns out the only combination of ace 8 suited is ace 8 of hearts. So there's only one of those. I don't think he's playing ace 8 offsuit pre-flop versus a raise. So yeah, what the hell is going on here? I don't know, but after thinking it over for some time, when things don't make sense to me and I just can't assign enough value hands, my default option is to call, even when it feels a bit risky. This time is no different. I try to just stick to my analysis, despite the money being a hefty chunk. Toss in the money, and luckily this time it pays off. After thinking it over, we end up winning this $120,000 pot. Feels so good to win a pot like this after weeks of struggle, especially when having to make a tough decision and eventually deciding the right thing. It's a nice confidence boost, and it's a nice way to end the session. This was the last fun hand of this stream. Stay tuned for some final thoughts and an announcement. As always, hope you all enjoyed the hands. Yeah, so all things considered, not the worst week, although losing on Wednesday did feel pretty bad because that was my 3rd or 4th loss in a row at Hustler. So I was quite happy to make things right on Friday. Lost around 20K the first session, but won a little over 60,000 on the second session. So for the week, we are up over 40K, which is more than welcome. It doesn't make a huge dent in recent developments, but it's a step in the right direction, and I think it's a good start. This upcoming weekend, I am going to Austin, Texas. I'll be playing at the Lodge live stream on Friday and Saturday, so if you guys are interested in checking that out live, feel free to do so. Otherwise, I'll cover those results in my next video. Side note, if anyone in the LA area has indoor soccer or just soccer in general that you need an extra player for, consider me, maybe. I just moved to the specific area I'm in. I'm in East LA, so if you guys play around here, please shoot me a message on Instagram, maybe shoot me an email. All the contact stuff is in the description box. And one last thing before I sign off, which is something I'm super excited about. You guys may or may not know this, but I'm super into music production, and it's something I've had as a hobby pretty much my whole life. It's actually what I went to college for. But I was never able to find success for one reason or another. Music is a really difficult industry to navigate. Even if you have good music or content that's worth sharing, sometimes it's not easy to get exposure. But I'm giving it another shot with some childhood friends that I was in a band with when I was in middle school, around 13 or 14 years old. We've been making music again this past year and are finally ready to release some music in the next month or so. I'll make sure to keep you guys updated. I'll share the Spotify links, Apple Music, whatever, I'll make sure to throw that up on YouTube. But for all you guys who enjoy music and want to hear some from yours truly, that's coming up real soon, and I can't wait because we've been working pretty hard at that. I'm actually the one doing all the mixing and mastering for the project as well, so I've been busy, but still trying to keep this poker thing going for as long as I can because it's also one of my passions. That's enough yapping from me. If you guys are still here, thanks. If you left a like, a comment, you subscribed, or anything supportive, I appreciate it. Stay tuned as we try to make back all the money that I lost this past month. There's still a lot of time left for the year, so I'm hoping to still come out on top. If not, well, life goes on. There's bigger problems to have, I guess. That's it for me, guys. As always, thank you for tuning in. And until next time, good luck at your local tables. Peace.